You want to be like Sherlock Holmes, right? Rapidly remembering and coming to the right conclusions with ease. Well, not so fast, because I think you can do far better than that. And to help you out, I want to introduce you to my friend Logan from Observe. He's a master teacher who shows you how to notice, recognize, ascertain, and discern details about people and things. Take notes from this video, magnetic friends, because you're about to experience an absolute masterclass in observation, estimation, deduction, and of course the processes you need to learn and remember more. Enjoy, hit that thumbs up, and stay tuned for an additional power tip at the end.
Hey everyone, my name's Logan Portnier, and I am part of a small community of mentalists called deductionists. If you don't know what that is, well, I get you. To put it simply, deductionists have a very similar practice to normal mentalists, but with a hyper focus on observation of details and drawing conclusions from those details. We coupled those mentalism practices with various powerful memory techniques to round out everything. Anyway, that's enough of an introduction. Today I'm lucky enough to spend some time talking about some observation techniques on this brilliant channel. I use the techniques that I'll cover today during close-up routines and video routines, but more realistically, I have used it for over a decade in sales experience to quickly and effectively establish rapport with strangers. But you can use these techniques literally anywhere. The first step comes before any observation ever begins, but it's vitally important for mental alacrity and efficiency. That first step is regular meditation. Now, I know this step sounds a little bit vanilla, so to speak, but I can't stress it enough. I could literally make an entire video centered exclusively around meditation, but you'll have to settle for this little summary instead. Meditation has been practiced by individuals from all over the world for thousands of years. It has only become a popular topic among practitioners of conventional medicine in recent years, largely because of research that has shown that meditation does not merely make one feel better or less stressed. There are physical benefits that appear to be backed up by clinical evidence. According to these studies, meditation can help individuals sleep better, cope with some symptoms associated with mental disorders like depression and anxiety, reduce some of the psychological difficulties associated with chronic pain, and even improve some cognitive and behavioral functions. So meditate. That's sort of the long and short of it. The next practice that I use is something called the ebb and flow technique. I have no doubt that there are other people that have other words for this technique, but I couldn't find it, so I used the ebb and flow technique because I think that it sums it up pretty well. One of the most common mistakes that a person makes when starting to practice observation, I included, is to hyper-focus on details. While this can be good, it also can cause tunnel vision. For instance, they'll be so focused on what a stain on a collar could be that they will miss the more telling markings on the person's hands that reveal that they are, for instance, a construction worker. Ebb and flow observation is a method that I use to work around this tunnel vision. During this technique, a person mentally relaxes and takes in the entirety of a person at first. This is the ebb portion of the practice. It's very relaxed and fluid. When a detail is seen, the person will then allow their attention to flow in and observe the detail in context of what the entire body shows. Then the person will allow their attention to ebb back out to the entire body until, once again, another detail becomes apparent. This process will repeat until a full character sketch has been established. Speed comes with practice. At first, this will not be a speed read, but it can be. At this point, I feel that it's important for me to stress that these first steps are in no specific or particular order. They are all equally important and helpful in improving your observational skills. That being said, another skill that takes years to hone but is enormously beneficial is intuition training. Intuition is defined as the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. Many people refer to this as their gut or instincts. It's a common belief that intuition is fickle and nuanced. Technically, that is semi-correct, but not Totally. I did an entire video on this over on my channel, but a brief synopsis is intuition is the process of your brain making millions of subconscious observations and calculations, which is then indicated by a feeling in the person's gut. According to the research of Dr. Deepak Chopra, a neuroendocrinologist or a specialist in the study of brain chemistry, our gut is actually its own nervous system, and potentially more powerful than our central nervous system. While this is crazy information, the thing is that you can train your ultra-powerful subconscious with conscious learning. That's right. The more time you spend consciously studying and practicing, the more accurate your intuition will become. Eventually, you'll be able to rely on your intuition to help with your observations. This is an enormously powerful tool and rarely emphasized. Eventually, you will be able to trust your intuition more and know that your gut feelings are based on solid research rather than just some nebulous idea. That is when your talents will truly begin to grow exponentially. However, all of this is just your pregame. Now we can start breaking down the process of observation itself. These steps are listed in order of process rather than of importance. It is important not to skip any steps during this. Being able to effectively observe the world around you isn't a 5 easy steps practice. It takes genuine work to become effective, but it is possible. The next 3 steps are the triple threat of observation, and they work in tandem, and they are very powerful with practice. First, one must learn to observe from feet to head. Now, Anthony has another method of observation that works very well for him, and you can go see him talk about it over at the video that he has done on my channel. I'll let him explain his approach over there, and I'll explain mine here. The approach that I take flies more or less in the face of what we have heard our whole lives. We've always heard the phrase head to toe, but this isn't necessarily the best way to observe a person. I always start with the feet because they are so rarely considered as valuable sources of information. They can, however, tell where a person has been, their habits, their lifestyle, an indication of income level, and many more tells. From the feet, an observer ought to be able to move up the body, noticing details and building it into a fleshed out character sketch. This can be repeated as many times as necessary. It seems simple to state, but it's very powerful to bring to fruition. Once again, the ebb and flow technique plays a heavy role in facilitating this, and it is furthered by the next steps. During the feet to head pattern is this 3-step process of taking in details. Closely tied to the ebb and flow technique, a person will gather general information about a person on the first pass. For example, the colors, quality, and condition of clothes, general facial features, so on and so forth. Then you take a second pass under the umbrella of the general knowledge you've just gained. During this second pass, the finer details are honed in on. This is done with the ebb and flow technique. For example, you saw on the first pass that the shoes were brown and leather, but on the second pass, you can notice the chewed laces that indicate the ownership of a cat or dog. Then you ebb back out, and instead of noticing that they were just wearing blue jeans, you notice that the blue jeans were form-fitting with manufactured fraying on the front. Now you know that they have a certain sense of fashion. You repeat this all the way up the body on this second pass, and then you arrive at the last step of the triple threat observation process, the double check. This is your final sweep that more or less tidies everything up into a nice informational package. Now, this step technically takes place during the other steps. It's what I refer to as maximizing hot point data. This sounds complex, but it's really straightforward. There are areas on a person that reveal more information than others. For instance, remember how I talked about some of what you can learn about a person from their shoes? The shoes would be considered a hot point. There is a large amount you can learn about a person by viewing their shoes. A not so hot point would be a belt. While there is a little information that you can learn about a person by what belt they are wearing, it's not really overwhelming. The hot points that I regularly look to are the shoes, condition of the clothes, tan lines, grooming, body shape, and tattoos. These hot points can indicate a person's general income level, personality, activity level, outdoor involvement, self-care, and creativity level. This is usually an excellent skeleton to hang the rest of the meat of your observation from. If you are sitting there and thinking to yourself, this sounds like a boatload of techniques to consider and carry out that it would take way too much time to do, well, you're relatively correct. When you're starting at least. This all takes years to perfect. Speed will come with repetition and practice. At first, you'll struggle to complete half of the steps here, but you'll get quicker and you'll find yourself able to gather more information as you practice. Don't get discouraged if the only thing you were able to see about a person was that they had blue jeans on, white shoes, and a green shirt. Eventually, you'll gain speed. Just gathering information doesn't have to be the end of the line for you. You could train yourself to be able to draw conclusions from that information. With that in mind, the next step would accurately be described as drawing conclusions. However, for the sake of brevity and a bit of showmanship, the deductionist community refers to this step as deduction. If you're not familiar with the hybrid pop culture term of deduction, then I'll give you a brief rundown before covering some of the details. Deduction, as used by deductionists, is the practice of the combined logical processes of induction, abduction, and deduction in order to draw forth the most educated conclusion possible via the given information. I made a video on this also. It's titled How Deductionism Can Help Every One of You. You can find it over on my channel if you're curious. But without further ado, let's talk about deduction. First, generalities must be considered. There are certain probabilities based on age, culture, location, etc. There are many books that are excellent sources for this: psychology books, cold reading books, sociology books. All of these sorts of books are all solid resources. If you would like some unsponsored reading suggestions for these commonalities, I suggest you start with Passages by Gail Sheehy, the Full Facts Book of Cold Reading by Ian Rowland, and just about any psychology or sociology textbook that you can find will work as well. All of these will give insight to the generalities of people. As renowned mentalist Darren Brown stresses, we are all painfully similar with some level of differences here and there. These generalities must be considered, but try not to rely completely on them. Every person has the potential to be unique, so it's important to validate these generalities with other observations. Next, you have to learn to start to trust your intuition. If you have trained it well, it has the possibility to make calculations far more quickly than your conscious mind ever could. Just as with the portion that I just listed, it should not be relied on fully. That being said, if you get a gut feeling about someone, you could then keep your conscious eye out for physical tells that your subconscious mind has possibly already taken note of. However, in order to know what you've concluded is reliable, the next step of deduction is required. It's the 3-tell verification. If a person is expected to be wealthy because of their watch, that single tell isn't nearly enough. It's important to verify that tell with at least 2 others. For instance, the high-end watch is excellent, but it could be verified by the manicure that the person has, or perhaps the tailored button front shirt with the golden cufflinks. Now, instead of one single tell, you have 3 that all but guarantee the income level of the person. During deduction, the multi-tell verification is crucial, vital even, and it leads us to the final portion of deduction, which is more of what you shouldn't do than what you should. And that's to never assume something without data. Assuming not only makes an ass out of you and me, but it's the mortal enemy of observation and drawing conclusions. I have to stress this though: intuition and assumptions are not the same. An assumption is seeing a person with an expensive watch and assuming that they are wealthy. Intuition would be that you see a person and you feel that they could be wealthy, so you start paying attention for other tells that support that. Assuming is the lazy person's game. If you start down the practice of assuming, your observations will eventually fall apart. Now, the practice of drawing logical conclusions from the given evidence is another skill that must be developed over time. However, it's not what this video is centered around. There are plenty of videos centered around that on my channel, but here's the kicker. All of this will be useless if you can't remember any of it. Anthony, as you all know, is brilliant with memory. He has recorded a video similar to this subject over on my channel. Being able to effectively use your brain's memory systems will allow you to lock the information you have observed and deduced into your memory for later access. Let's go ahead and wrap up this entire process by summarizing it in its entirety. Everything starts with keeping your brain clear and prepped for action with meditation. Next, maintaining that mental composure during the read with the ebb and flow technique will allow you to avoid tunnel vision while observing. Finally, training your intuition to be accurate will help you speed up your future observations and deductions. Now, during the observation, all while keeping the ebb and flow technique in mind, you start at the feet and move to the head, beginning with the general details and moving to the finer ones. Then you double check all of it to be sure. After this, you begin to draw some conclusions. You keep in mind probabilities, listen to your intuition, and never assume anything. If you notice a tell, make sure that you back it up with multiple other tells, at least 2 other tells, making a total of 3. If you practice all of these techniques, you will be able to catch details that 80% of the rest of the population will miss. And that brings this video to a close. If you liked this video and would like to learn more about observation and deduction, head over to my channel called Observe and watch to your heart's content. There are over 200 videos over there. If you want to learn how to even better use your brain in all of its brilliance, consider subscribing to Anthony's channel here if you haven't already. Regardless, thank you very much for watching, but without further ado, that's all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome, as I'm sure you always are. And I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.
Hey, thanks so much for checking out Logan's video. Again, check out his channel. It's called Observe, and you'll be rewarded when you subscribe now, as Logan helps you train your observation and deduction skills. Thanks as ever for the view and helping us train the robots with your thumbs up, so our computer overlords know humans still care about the great memory tradition and your brain's incredible ability to observe more and think better. All you have to do is show up and train your brain. And if you want to know more about observation and memory, I shared a mini masterclass on Logan's Observe channel. Watch it next. It's called the Memory Palace Brain Exercise that improves your memory and observation skills.